Apologetic behavior is something that we've just been speaking about as we were warming up for this episode and clearing our minds as to what we want to be talking about. Austin, what do you think should be what's your take on that?
Yeah, man. And by the way, what's up, everybody? And thanks for everybody who's watched that episode about the ayahuasca and all that stuff in the comments. That was really exciting for us to see a lot of people enjoying that. So hopefully you'll enjoy this episode the same, and like and subscribe if you're into this kind of stuff. But as far as like apologetic behavior, so we were just talking about that, living in Peru, right? You can never really escape yourself, by the way. So a lot in my life, I think, due to abandonment issues and all this, stuff, and maybe I always was trying to seek approval, from other people, right? Trying in whatever kind of way, and seek validation. And man, isn't that so destructive for everybody involved? And now living in Peru, being from a different country as a foreigner, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it is a difficult thing. It's not easy to go and try to learn, especially if you're, light skinned too, and kind of American or German, you know what I mean? People have an idea in other countries that you're attached to money, power, wealth, like your cousin, you had it easy. You just gotta walk anywhere and it's all handed for you. Well, that's not really the case, really. And if you're traveling and maybe if you're traveling, it's one thing, but man, there's a lot of kind of underlining animosity or envy that people experience, and so I've felt that a lot while living here, and you can feel that underlining tone. And I also felt that a lot in the United States, and it wasn't for my status and wealth and all this stuff. It was just like the way that I was. People kind of felt threatened by me, or maybe a little jealous and stuff, and like a little bit like, oh, who is this guy? He thinks he's all that, and I would feel that underlying thing, and then I would change myself to try to meet the level of other people. But that never worked out for me, especially. Never worked for anybody, but it made myself feel small and insignificant, and then it's a horrible cycle, and I felt so inauthentic, and then I hate myself, and I want to just, and then I get mad, and then I want to just beat everybody up, kind of type of thing, myself, and then I beat myself up, go to drugs, drinking, over trying to refine myself through bad ways, to feel whole again, when in fact I am a complete whole person as I am. And so I'm learning this lesson here while living in a kind of a ghetto in Peru, a very survival state, a lot of drugs, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of poverty, a lot of domination and just survival stuff. I've had to learn that here and kind of overcome that here and be like, I just got to be myself and be fine with who I am and respect myself. And forget people's dirty looks and forget their kind of talking crap about me as soon as I leave, because I know that's what's going on, and gossiping, and sort of being able to rise above that. Not an easy thing to do, but I think we unconsciously chose this place, to kind of do that, and my fiance, and, who's lived here her whole life, gosh, she's dealt with this her whole life. She's a good person, and she has a beautiful spirit. But man, when you're in an environment like this and you have a good spirit, it's not easy. It's not easy. So that's kind of what we're talking about, is how do we overcome that? Or is it something that you overcome at all? Or is it something that you need to embody and realize and just become, and through meditation? Or how do you even explain that? That is. And I think everybody deals with that. I think what we're talking about, just because our situation is unique in a different country, foreign country, Peru, whatever, I think everybody experiences this probably all over the place,
As you've just explained, this very detailed chain of kind of reactions of what happens, and that usually starts with the lack of authentic expression, right? I hear you oftentimes talking about that this is a value of yours. This is very important to you, this authentic expression. So walk through that if you can. Walk through the chain again, and I think from that we can really help other people also understand that, because oftentimes they have emotional reactions and they don't quite know that the cause for that is actually 2 or 3 levels deeper. In the same way as I like to explain that if you take a look at the salt bag and you imagine that to be like a water balloon, the place where you apply pressure is not the place where it divulges, right? So like the effect is not where the cause is. So where we look and where we see the effects is not necessarily where we need to look at. In the same way as when we have an anger issue, when we have envy, exactly, animosity, the survival, dominating others, when we see these behaviors, they might have other reasons and deeper causes for that. So I'm curious, what have you learned so far about the real cause of that pattern of, you said part of that is wanting to please people, part of that is kind of changing how sometimes you experience that the voice changes, or that you feel that we need to explain ourselves. And I myself, before we started that episode, I've shared that I've becoming better at that and training myself to not apologize, to not say, sorry that I'm late for 2 minutes, although that rarely happens. I tend to be good on time, but sometimes it happens that I send the meeting notes too late, or like I didn't respond for like 24 hours or so. And instead of saying like, sorry, my day was busy, here's what I had, it's like trying to explain and justify myself, I just say what needs to be said, which is, here are the meeting notes, without explaining that, right? And so where does it come from, the need to explain ourselves, and what does that have to do with authenticity? I know it's a very loaded question. Maybe you can speak of that.
Man, probably a lot of it comes from how your childhood was shaped. You know, that's like probably a pretty obvious statement, but that's very much so. Maybe not just your family situation. You know, your family situation might be great, but you go to school and a whole different dynamic shows up. But definitely it starts early for sure. You know, so if you've had a divorced parents, or if you've had a tragedy that makes you feel like, hey, nobody loves me, right? Or nobody likes me, and then you then learn that, okay, when I do this for people, then people give me attention. Or hey, and then it starts in school. I give a sandwich to somebody. My sandwich just, I made a friend now. You know what I mean? And not everybody's going to take advantage of that. But sometimes when you're in that, you end up attracting people in your life who do, and you feel like, okay, I have to then, and then it becomes this vicious cycle. And then as you grow older and older, you might overcome some of that stuff, but then you'll reach a different level, a version of that. And I feel like it never really goes away. And you might be able to learn boundaries and set up boundaries for yourself and overcome a lot of that stuff through therapy and through a lot of shadow work and, ayahuasca ceremonies, and overcome all that stuff. But it might show up in some kind of other way, because that needs to be, it's truly something that comes from within. You need to actually feel full and whole with yourself and be okay with disappointing others and being okay with risking them not liking you, right? Like that's the whole thing. I don't know why I always thought before everybody had to like me no matter what. And if they don't like me, I got to make sure that person likes me and respects me and stuff. And it's like, but it was really coming from a lack of self-esteem from whatever, from childhood, could be that. But a lack of self-esteem and self-worth, knowing that actually I have worth and respect for myself. That's why it's so important, if you have kids, to teach that to the kids as much as you possibly can. Because, I'm turning 33 years old next month, and it's taken me a while. And some people it might happen in their 60s, and they finally understand that. We can't be living our life like this. It's miserable. Worrying about what everybody's thinking about you. And walking without strength and power in your step. And it's not all just what you eat. It is a big portion of that, what you eat and consume and all that stuff. But the whole other aspect is like, how you conduct yourself and just how you feel on the inside. But it takes work. You have to really want to not want that anymore. You have to hit your, and I think this happened to me this week. I was so tired of walking around Quillabamba, Peru, where there's a lot of gossip, and I can sit in that victim mode, which I have. I've been, I've complained about it. Well, this place sucks, blah, blah, blah. But what started to happen over the last few days when I just, started writing it out and kind of doing these meditations and just, okay, how would I feel if even for 15 seconds. How would I feel if I was walking around here and I didn't care what anybody was thought about me? Or maybe they even think, wow, that guy's cool. You know, I'm kind of nervous around him, and maybe he's awesome, you know, and I want to get to know him, but I don't know how to connect with him. You know, maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe that's what a lot of people think. Or maybe they're just jealous and they wish, hey, you know, and that's okay. Why don't I just lean more into that then? And stop fighting that and stop trying to that, because to live that inauthenticity, it's not going to be good for me, horrible for me. It's also not going to be good for them either, because it's like what benefit out of that is there, you know? So it's work though. It's work, but I think we're learning that, and I think we'll be able to create something in the future for people all around the world who are experiencing this, a way to kind of get out of that, because I think that is so much suffering, so much addiction comes from that. So much addiction, you know, drug addiction. It's like, why do you take drugs at a party? Why do you take Molly? Why do you take, oxycodone? Why do you take coke or meth, whatever? You know, so that you can feel good, like you can just feel like whole and normal, and that because you're not enough, so you have to then take something, and it's fine. I'm not like necessarily against drugs or alcohol, or everything can be done in its own appropriate place, I think, more or less. But when you're trying to compensate for that, this is when we find all these destructive ways, and we feel like crap in our society, in our world, and I don't want this, But what I wanted to say though, what started to happen was, as soon as I changed it and I went out into the street, the world reacted to what I was thinking. The world reacted to this new change. And Joe Dispenza always talks about that. And I started to understand that. I all of a sudden saw people smiling and laughing in the street and doing funny stuff and say, hey, it's like, where is this coming from? It's because I shifted internally my vibration, and it sounds hippie crazy stuff. Dude, I swear, it shifted like that. And it was pretty cool to see. Like, okay, so you start to repeat that more and more. You do that shift, and you get more used to that. Now you're living a new reality. Now you're like, yeah. And now,
good that we have that on video. I'll clip that for you. I said it's good that we have that on video. I'll clip that for you. Yeah, because exactly those types of things, we gotta keep reminding ourselves of that. These profound insights. I've been writing journals for the last 3.5-4 years, right? In physical, and then earlier last year, I've taken, basically a lot of weeks going through the journals again and speaking that in via speech to text onto a Google document to clarify my thoughts around all of these things, because it really, we don't need that many deep, profound insights, and that certainly is one of them. That you realize, and you have this emotional experience, that when you project something else on somebody, something different on somebody else, everything changes about it. Mm-hmm. And here's something that is interesting that I want to get into right now, based on what you just said. I like silence when I work. And so I've realized that my neighbor seems to have a new partner, and so not during the nighttime, that would be worse, but just during the daytime, a lot of conversation is happening. And so I'm getting triggered by that as well. And then when I am out of balance and exactly experience what you said, self-directed anger, also oftentimes a projection of that, where I'm like, you're supposed to love your neighbor like yourself. That means start with yourself and then also love your neighbor like that, right? And I realized that I'm also then less likely to say hello to them when I see them in the hallway, I'm like, all this inside of me is like, this motherfucker. But and I harbor that inside of me. So in the same way, when you're perceiving that, it also leads that the people who get some emotional benefits from that, because there are some toxic people, and they're looking for somebody who is in the same way as I attract dogs who like to kind of play with my fear around that. And I feel like I get barked at and chased after by dogs more than the usual person here, but because I'm so reactive. Right? Because I'm triple checking, and it's I haven't yet completely changed that in myself. That little phobia thing, although it's been getting much, much better. But I also realized, like, behavior, I can't just keep kicking people's dogs. That's not cool.
Right.
That is not cool. And that is too strong of a reaction.
And for context here, I've kicked dogs here too, but we're not like, you have to go to Peru to understand what we're talking about. Dogs literally freaking jump and run and chase after you if you're riding on your motorbike, and it's dangerous. So there's dogs who, there's not just like, Florian's not saying he goes around and just kicks people's dogs. No. There's dogs who literally chase you and follow you here in the jungle of Peru because there's no like restrictions on that, just for context.
And here's another interesting thing. Why do they do that? Because they're emotionally not imbalanced. They're laying around all day. These dogs, they get charged up by the energy of the sun and just rest until their body needs some kind of...
Sun dogs.
Some kind of...
Sun dogs.
Sun dogs, yeah. They're gazing in the sun and receiving some kind of something. And yeah, so because they need to purge some of that physical energy as well. Oftentimes dogs cannot mate here, so that is also not an outlet that they have.
Really? I see them on the street all the time.
Yeah, but the dogs that usually belong to somebody, they usually get get fixed.
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is, like, why would a dog do that? Because it needs that energetic release, right? You see that all the time where they're running around kind of other vehicles as well, because they just need, they have that inside of them, and that needs to be expressed, right? And if they can't express it in a healthy way because they're not a wolf somewhere in the forest, but they're a dog laying around in a jungle town,
right,
then it will express in a different way. And so in the same way, the behaviors that we as humans, as mammals, express in a very same way, right? Energetic imbalances. And maybe we can go into that if you're up for that.
Well, I wouldn't know anything about an energetic imbalance.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, dude. I've been so in that I've like owned the trademark for energetic imbalance for like a long time. Like I was so up and down, and I would almost feed off of that since I was a kid, or since I was a young man too. Like I remember I would sit on the subway in Portland, Oregon, going and just super depressed and not understanding. But I would put on music that was like by a group named Pat Metheny Group, which is just a musical genius. And I got that music from my dad because like it's just incredible music. So, but some of his songs are haunting and depressing at the beginning, and then on the second half, it's the most beautiful, heavenly, like joyous music you ever heard. So I would write. I still have a lot of those pages. One day I'll make something out of it. But like of these, poetry and just feelings that I'd write down and depress it, and then I'd transfer them into heavenly and transform that and try to transmute that into up and down. But it's sort of because I could so. I feel I just understand that sort of up and down thing, not grounded, right? People call it all kinds of various forms of mental illness and stuff. I feel like everybody is that way unless they learn how to ground themselves, unless they learn how to find their purpose and simplify their life, which a lot of that stuff has left me for the most part, And for me, if I do feel that way, an easy fix is get on the treadmill, listen to the music from my culture, listen to the rap music that I used, about pimping and dealing drugs or whatever, like it does. I don't have to identify with that right now as I am in my, but if I put on music that like, and work out and kind of do that to it's like kind of like you're getting your soul again, you're reminding yourself, then that kind of lifts. I remember who I am again, and and anybody can do that anywhere. You can always lose yourself, and I think a lot of that imbalance is from lack of authenticity within yourself, and although that's a real touchy subject because you hear a lot of that in the whole lefty thing, and then people say, okay, well, cut off your wiener and you're authentic. Do some work before you just jump into that. You have to figure out who you actually are. That's why I recommend traveling and getting out of, getting rid of the phone and being celibate for a while, just because like forget, quit porn and stuff like that. Because all these things are trying to also push you into being something that you may think you're authentic, but you really are not, So That's why it takes a bit of work to really find your true, actual, authentic self. And it is a lifelong journey too, for the most part. But you can, I don't know. That's a lot of different things. But I think a lot of that has to do with the up and down thing. And then we're also mostly in societies where that don't really care about that. If you're, because people don't really care if you say, hey, I feel like I'm emotionally imbalanced right now. Or either one, they'll react to you like afraid, scared, and they think that, oh, we got to help you then, and then people think that they're like above you and shit if you talk to them about that. Or like here in Peru and Latin American culture where that's not even a freaking thing to talk about. So I love that you brought up that conversation, because the emotional, the up and down, the emotional thing is so important to get that in control, and not taking things personally. It's so difficult to do, especially in relationships, especially with people who trigger you and friends and family, and people you don't know who trigger you in the street, and you think you've been disrespected by people that you don't even know or don't even care to know. Why are you giving them your power? Why do we give so much of our power and our precious gold, soul? Our soul is like gold. We're just give it away to whoever gives us a dirty look, for whoever makes some sort of comment, and we absorb it and we take it. And it's like, do we want to keep, is this serving us? Is this really serving me? That's what you got to ask yourself. Is this serving me? Really, truly, and play it out. Is this vice serving me seriously? What is it doing for me? Really? Maybe there's an alternative. And if you feel like there's no escape from this thing, or no escape from your talent, well, pray, pray to something. Pray and say, I want to make a change. I wasn't born just for this, to be a slave to my emotions, to be a slave to other people's thoughts and what they're thinking and their misery, whatever they're, I wasn't born, I didn't fight through billions of other Siemens, who wanted to get here too, who wanted to attach themselves to my mother's egg, and be born through the birth canal into this world. I didn't fight here to just live like some pathetic, mediocre person and be worried about what A, B, C, Amy, Jose, Hoseby, whatever is thinking about me. Does that make sense?
Very much. And so we're on the topic of authenticity. And so let's make it practical. I had a call this morning with a young gentleman from Peru. He lives in LA. And so I'm like, I'm German, I live in Peru, we should connect. So we had to call this morning.
Nice.
23 years old, he hustles and has, few business ventures of his own.
Nice.
Started cleaning residential houses. I've done that as well in Australia when I was just 18, 19 years old, so I get it, I understand what that's like. And I respect that tremendously. Tony Robbins started as a janitor as well, so if you know how to clean, that is a very... you learn attention to detail, don't you?
That's right.
You learn also humility of what it really takes to get things clean.
That's right.
And maintain them. And so if somebody is in that position, they have the fire in their soul that you've just spoken to, so they receive these words in that fire. What do we do practically when we are like not seeing a lot of friends, seeing the friends that we got oftentimes through the screen? We work a lot to make it in this world. We deal with competition. We deal with, how are we authentic and content and free at the same time? What are the practices for that? What do you think? In terms of actions that we can take, behaviors that we can change. And so I guess the question is, what does a playbook to finding yourself kind of look like? Or rather, we said traveling, experiences, ayahuasca, that has helped us certainly. What am I even asking? I don't know. I was just remembering the conversation and I'm like, okay, what would we tell our younger self kind of thing? Right?
Well, like a playbook, that's where I don't know that there is a one playbook, because like there's so many products and so many teachers out there who say follow this method and and blah, right? financially free, and like you got to do these steps. There is no one size fits all playbook. That's what's so cool about being a human being in life, that there's no one thing. It is truly up to the individual. And I think I said this in one of the other podcasts. First, figure out what you want, because if you don't even know what you want in this life, how are you going to even know who to be or how to get there? First you got to figure out kind of like some things that you want, some general things that you want. Do you want to be wealthy? Do you actually want that? Okay, cool. Do you want to have a family? All right. Do you want to just be, single, but, traveling the world? Okay, great. You got to figure out, like, you see where you're at now. You're wherever you are in life, and you're not satisfied, and you're feeling all these, insecurities, and everybody's looking at you. You're sinking in this depression. You're doing things that are, to try to compensate for that. You're miserable, in other words, but you got to figure out what you want first, in order for any of that to. And you don't have to know exactly detail per detail, because if you're too detailed, and you don't quite match up to exactly that, then you'll find another excuse to procrastinate more from actually advancing. And then you'll keep setting yourself up for failure again and again and again, because, the world let me down. People suck. The government sucks. I don't like the presidents. I don't like, whatever president's in there, I don't like them. You can blame this person. I'm going to blame this or that. But until you start to actually, my grandpa told this to my dad. My dad told this to me. I remember my dad telling me this, that, I don't know what was going on. My dad was going through something, but my grandpa, who was a very smart guy and like engineer in Canada, at the Air Force and all this stuff. Very tough guy. But he told my dad, look in the mirror and tell yourself, I am 100% responsible for everything in my life. I am 100% responsible. Not everybody else, not my spouse, not my parents. Everybody loves blaming their parents, all the time. Like, still, if you're 30s and 40s, you gotta heal some stuff, when you can, as you're going. But you are in your body now, you're moved out, whatever. You can't blame your family in the situations all the time. You have to then look yourself up in the mirror at some point. If you're a man or a woman, I don't care, or even a young man or a woman, it's better if the younger you are to realize that I am 100% responsible for everything in my life. And then it's like, dude, the world can start to open up for you. And it's like, everything actually is possible, but you got to feel that inside too. You got to feel that and repeat that. Even if the situation is crap that you're in, escape that hell in your mind first. Your mind is so powerful, but we're being sidetracked, man, by the phones and by the this and that and the even, dare I say, like the playbooks, and that's what your job, the shiny object syndrome, that there's always something, that there's this, and I got to follow this thing, and then it's going to work out for me. My life's going to be it. But if you're not actually starting to really do that, nobody wants to do that work. I didn't for a long time. Like, I got to actually feel this. I got to feel wealthy before the opportunities start coming. I got to feel secure with myself before other people actually start respecting me. I got to actually respect myself. Damn, that's tough. Because I was hoping everybody else would do that for me. I was hoping everybody else would do that work. I was hoping I could just, do these things, and then it would just all fall into place. No, it's got to be done first. You are what you get what you are. We get there's a TV show I love called True Detective. Matthew McConaughey said in the show, we get the world that we deserve. I love that, man. I hate it and I love it, because it's like, dang, I complain about the governments. It's like, but at some point, Austin, it's like, well, what are you going to do about it? You hate the corruption. You hate that the hospital has. The other day I was at the hospital and the doctor, freaking dog, dirty ass dog, like a cow, just dirty, freaking pregnant and just freaking filthy dog running through the hospital. Nobody was doing anything. And I was sitting there with my fiance. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me right now? Where's the security? And so I got up and I tried to push the dog out, and I was pissed. And I showed a little bit of emotion, but I was like, this dog can't be in there. I talked to the nurses and they got defensive. Like I was being an asshole, but it's like, you got to at some point take action and be okay with it's going to be uncomfortable. But the more you do it, start taking action. Start taking one action step at a time. One thing that's uncomfortable, that's where you can start. What is that thing that you haven't done yet that's uncomfortable that you need to do?
People don't get it when you say some filthy dog running through the hospital. People are like picturing some Western hospital on the 3rd floor. You're like in the.
No, we're in
This is
Peruvian.
not,
Yeah, I mean, it's sad.
Yeah,
it's sad. It makes you angry because that's a whole nother thing. But what I was more saying was like that. Taking action of that, taking action, and even though everybody's sitting around, there's a dirty dog sitting in the hospital, and nobody's saying anything, nobody's doing anything,
Because you accept it. That's exactly what you said. You get what you deserve, and you get what you accept.
Exactly.
And so at some point, that's why I'm prepping and preparing for a few more years where I'm first really start to utilize my leadership skills right where we're at, because there's plenty fucking to do. And
that's true, man.
And so exactly what you said is like, we got to start right here where we're at. And I really do appreciate you sharing. That was tremendous. I think we've said a lot of things. Would you want to talk about anything else? I think we've covered a lot of ground here. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, just like the bringing home that whole thing. We talked about ayahuasca a lot in that last one, but I do want to talk about it too. Like, people are constantly looking for an experience to heal them and fix them, which those experiences can help you to find. I'm not saying that those are bad or not, but eventually those experiences can fade too. You can have the most powerful ayahuasca experience, DMT experience, freaking whatever, wedding, I don't know, like whatever the experience is, those things can fade, and especially if you're putting all your chips, all of your money on all of your crypto on that one thing to fix you, you might be disappointed, because you actually need to fix yourself first, and then those things can help you. But maybe after a year, man, that might just be a distant memory, and then you're triggered again, and then you're insecure again, and what are you doing? What are you doing on the daily? What are we doing on the daily to get that stuff, going? For you to not be living in suffering. We got to get out of this suffering thing. And we're starting to embody that now. Florian and I, we've been good friends for a number of years now, and we're really coming out of that. This is why we're creating these shows, because we are now better with ourselves. We're getting stronger with ourselves. We're learning how to put boundaries with people, and really we're advancing because we are now becoming those people. We are actually becoming those people. So I also wanted to say that anybody who is miserable out there or bored or just like, dude, you really can make these changes. And if you're in a situation you feel like people are controlling you, or your family, or people don't really want to see you, be yourself or do better. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people in those situations who are in these family created dynamics to where you haven't had a place to do that, to shine. I've been very fortunate with my family. They've been very supportive of pretty much everything that I've done, like almost good or bad. Just they've kind of like let me play this thing out. Which I'm very fortunate. But not everybody's had that. But don't be afraid to fail and fall flat on your face. And just keep getting back up. It sounds so corny, but eventually you will learn from these experiences. And even you've had a effed up beginning. Maybe you were a prostitute or something, or maybe you screwed that part up, and just like you did. You have opportunity. You absolutely can get out of that, and create a completely brand new life for it, no matter who you are. If you were a drug dealer, if you were in prison, if you just feel like a weenie, or maybe you're making $100,000-$200,000 a year, you feel like a lame weenie, like weak, and you can't even get a girl's phone number, or they just try to use you or stuff. Man, You absolutely can get out of that, and you can create power for yourself. Create power. Become your own doctor, kind of. Become your own shaman, right? Like become your own wizard, you know. And I'm not saying make weird cocktails and like, you know, do all that kind of weird black magic stuff trying to control people. But I'm saying like do that for your own life and figure out those things that you need. Get your needs met and filled because you deserve it, because you're an amazing human being in life, and you were born not to just be weak and following. You were born to lead. You were born to, you know, we're caretakers of this world. You were born to lead the next generation, you know? So let's do that. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
And I would like to add to that life is guiding us and life is teaching us as we go. In the same way as you shared that now after this decision of commitment for you as the next stage of your life begins, more situations are going to come. Yeah. And you will learn and you will grow and you will get served the lessons that you need at that moment.
That's right.
And so with that, I would like to invite everybody to see life as this practice. We're living life and we're getting better at it every day. And there are a few dynamics of how life works. We've talked about a few, how childhood affects us, that we generally as humans tend to put importance on what other people think of us. Because otherwise, back in the very old days, we would have been ostracized, right? So we had to have some certain consideration of how I'm being perceived. Yeah. Plus it serves us because in the way that human society functions, and that is also one part of how to get out of this poverty, is specialization, right? Back in the old days, when you were very specialized astronomer or even self-taught, just a, what's the person called that made the king laugh? The
jester.
The jester, right? You specialize in doing one thing well, and from that, recognition will come, and wealth will come, and life teaches us the steps that we need to take. And so, yeah, pineal gland awakening, we've been talking about that on the last episode, how we receive that. What do we do if we don't know what's right for us? That was also something that we've talked about in this episode, right? What do we do if you are 23 in LA and you are working all day and things are going, and you're working very hard to build your life, right? Then tuning in with it in a voice, with the intuition that knows what's right and what's wrong. And it is a sense. It is truly a sixth sense. And if we don't use it, we lose it. Like with everything else. In the same way as, you know, we talk a lot about sports. You practice, you get better at what you practice. It's like you can't expect to be a great golfer when you know a good tennis swing. Yeah. It doesn't translate. So like, what do we get good at, right? What do we specialize in? And so how we carry ourselves, behaviors, habits, mannerisms, our thoughts, our emotions, what we really think about ourselves, and these expectations that we have of ourselves and of other people. All of these are interesting psychological factors, and I'm looking very much forward to exploring more of those in the upcoming episodes.
Yeah, sounds good, man. That sounds good. I definitely in the next coming, because I don't have a great answer for that, like exactly what people need to do at an individual level, because it's completely individualized. You know, if one young man is addicted to porn and dating apps and he's obsessed with that and he can't, and he's wondering why his life's not going in that direction good, and he's, you know, just like he's spending all his paycheck on freaking a new Gucci belt, and then he doesn't have money for gas to go to the car to the club. Like, you gotta get your priorities straight, man. Like if you're in that situation, you know, sell all your stuff and freaking go somewhere away from there and cut all your friends out, because like that's not, you know. But I don't really know who's listening, so I don't really know like the exact situations that people are in. I know we've talked about, like, you know, people having, you know, we're kind of talking about people who are already past all that crap and that they're kind of in a state of who've had sort of a semi-awakening or a full awakening, and they feel that they're in life and they feel very like an alien, or they feel different in this world that feels so materialistic and sleep, and who look at people like that who spend all their money on the belt, and they just think, you know, is this really the world that we're in? This is so stupid. You know, and they see through how ridiculous and controlled this world is, and how people It's depressing, man. And it's all over the world. It's all over the freaking world. I moved to Peru thinking everybody's going to be all spiritual and stuff. There are pockets and stuff, but it's almost the same as in the United States. In some ways worse. I actually realized, I found there was more people to talk to about this type of stuff there than there is, at least in the town we live in. But that's okay. You got to realize that you got to show love and compassion for people and just do the best you can. Do the best you can. If you have this weight, just look at it as a gift from God or a gift from your higher self before you came here to this world, that you were given a little extra a little bit of extra heaviness, that an information that you have to figure out a way in order to interpret that. And it's like a burden. Yeah, it's difficult, but maybe you were meant to be a leader. Maybe you weren't meant to be a follower. Maybe you weren't meant to just be a consumer and just to be, maybe you weren't meant to just get on a dating app and swipe, and maybe there's nothing in that anyway in the first place. Maybe even if you get that, maybe that never ends and you're just wasting your life. What if there's an actual life that is waiting for you, that wants you a lot, that wants you more than you even know? But you gotta at least quiet all this stuff down enough to even know that exists. How do you do that? I mean, I did that through ayahuasca ceremony. That's how I was even able to see that. I don't know how it will look for each individual person. Everybody's different, There's people too who vision quests. You can find contacts there. Like, I know a lot of the indigenous reservations in America. You can still go on a vision quest. Pay $300 and they'll help you, and you can go up for 3 days and do a vision quest. I don't know. Sweat lodge. There's all these ways that you can get. But I would say figure out a way to disconnect from that, for at least be a little bit more disciplined on it, because the cell phone is super dangerous. This is black magic, straight up Black Mirror magic that's probably been going on for a long time. So they say that witches would look into the mirror and the black mirror, and it would do whatever that is. It's got a huge control over us, and figure out a way to feel like a human again, and if you've never had that opportunity, which a lot of young people have not, they grew up with the social media, and they grew up with I gotta put on, tight pants as a man to be cool or whatever. Well, I would say you gotta be more comfortable in yourself, but you see what I mean? You gotta be this well, maybe you don't, because you got one life, and you don't want to spend it trying to please the rest of this, did I say stupid world? It's kind of stupid in a lot of ways. Find a way to, find your people as well. Find your, there are other people out there, and send the signal out. Okay, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. I don't want to live like this. You have to at least get to that point where you're sick and tired of being like this, and sick and tired of this this weak state. And you'll find out that you have so much more power and joy within you than you even ever could understand. And you have a lot to offer the world like that. And the world maybe they won't be ready, but maybe they are now. Maybe people are more ready for you to just show your light. You have a light within yourself. Don't dim it. What a shame that would be, to be 75 years old and you could have shown your light and really lived and really done something that you felt was authentic, but instead you were too afraid to, and then you die. What the heck is that? That's BS, man, woman, whatever. You see what I mean? Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I would say, man, we got stuff to do. I got a wedding coming up in about a couple weeks, so we got a lot to do. Florian's my best man here, and he's gonna help me. We're gonna get all that together. So thanks, man, for everything, and it's been a great show. Everybody have a great week, and comment down below. Peace.